Call to order the September 22nd Ventnor City Commissioner meeting. Well, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag, United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Lisa.
Commissioner Kriebel,
Here.
Commissioner Landgraf,
Here.
Mayor Holtzman. Let the record reflect Mayor Holtzman is absent.
Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the law. We do not have any presentations tonight. We do not have department head reports. Capital discussion, we had Leon Costello scheduled to be here tonight, but he's unable to attend. We do have on our agenda to introduce a bond ordinance, I think 2 bond ordinances.
Right.
For various improvements throughout the city, purchasing of vehicles, things of that nature. We'll get into that when we introduce that ordinance. But we don't really have a presentation at this point because Leon couldn't be here.
Hmm.
We'll do that at our next meeting, correct?
Yeah, and the next meeting is when, I think you would have the public hearing, so that's.
Correct. Yeah, it would be good to have him here for that to answer any questions that we or the public might have. Yep.
Right.
Okay. So we won't have that
Correct.
presentation tonight. So this is our workshop. Just a lot of people are here tonight that don't normally attend. So we'll go through our agenda. We will discuss them between Commissioner Kriebel and I, and then have a discussion session with the public on a couple topics. And we will also have a public session on items on the agenda tonight. We will then go through our regular agenda, vote on items that are appropriate. And at the end of that, we have a public session on anything that anybody wants to talk about. So that's kind of how we're going to handle it. And I'm trying to talk close. If you can't, we're having trouble with our speakers and microphones last 2 weeks ago. So we're going to work through that. And if I just raise your hand if you can't hear, we do have, did we find that? It's right there. We have one apparatus that someone can use if they're hard of hearing. It's a earpiece and it takes this recording and puts it right into it. So if anybody wants to use that, please let us know now. Don't all jump at once. Okay. All right.
Does anybody want to use that hearing apparatus or are we good? All right.
I will do my best. I will do my best. I'm going to ask for the lapel things. What do they call lavalettes? Lavalier. Got to get something like that because this, I can't see my stuff if that's right in my face like this. So the first thing that we will do tonight was we'll approve the minutes of our August 11th regular meeting. And then we do have 2 ordinance introductions that I just mentioned. The first being 2022-017, which is a bond ordinance for various utility capital improvements, appropriating $1.475 million and authorizing the issue of $1.47 million in bonds or notes to finance part of the cost thereof. Tim, you got any questions on that?
So, nope, not on that particular bond ordinance. The one coming up, I have a little bit more to say about it, but no, that's housekeeping. As we said, we're going to be reviewing the ordinances at the public hearing on those items.
Okay. Just to go through some of the stuff that's in that, to utility capital improvements, including not limited to acquisition and installation as applicable of various equipment, acquisition of non-passenger vehicles, fire hydrants, water meters, an excavator, shower equipment for the boardwalk, a fuel tank for the emergency generator at the main utility plant, utility infrastructure improvements at various locations throughout the city, including but not limited to drinking water well number 5, security upgrades at various locations, installation of air conditioning at main utility plant, replacement of wastewater pump at Public Works pump station, and various water and sewer main improvements. So that's the first bond we're talking about.
All right.
Second one is bond or ordinance number 2022-018. Again, various general capital improvements by and in the city of Ventnor, appropriating $5.873 million, authorizing the issue of bonds in that amount. That includes, but not limited to, the infrastructure improvements, recreation improvements, drainage improvements, boardwalk improvements, beach improvements, bulkhead and roadway improvements, acquisition and installation as applicable of equipment and non-passenger vehicles for police, emergency services, fire and public works departments, construction of a band shelter, and various improvements to beach headquarters. Okay. Questions on that?
No, so that one has a little bit more meat to it in terms of my departments. Lots of police equipment that's spread out over the next year. Improvements to a lot of electronic equipment that the police are going to need, as well as vehicles and upkeep in vehicles. The beach patrol also has upgrading some equipment and replacing some equipment. And those are all being itemized in any of the online documents. And the fire department, which is always trying to keep their equipment up to date, replaces an ambulance in the next year, so that we'll have literally 10 years of a fleet there that would be without really any need for maintenance.
Okay, good. Okay. So they'll just be introduced tonight, no public hearing on those. We'd have any public hearings on ordinances or adoptions of any tonight. Resolutions and contracts. Resolutions will be done by consent. Resolution 2022-291 through 222-300. And I think we're adding at least one from the bench.
Yes.
And that is resolution 2022-302. So we'll go through those. If we have any questions on, we can answer them then. So the first one is dealing with special events and construction. That is resolution 291, enforcement of no parking within the city of Ventnor from October 1st to December 31st. Any
Right.
issues there? Any questions?
It's just, we do it every year.
Housekeeping. Resolution 292 is also authorizing no parking and suspension of open container during Eagles viewing party at Ski Beach. The date of that is November 20th. That's correct. Yep.
We were getting a electronic sign for that, or electronic screen.
Yes. Yeah. Donna worked out with the guy who does the Brigantine tailgates over there.
Right.
So he'll be available. It's an away game. So it's kind of nice to do
Nice.
that. So wear a warm coat.
Yeah.
Should be fun. Resolution 293 is County of Atlantic, State of New Jersey, accepting resignation of Al Stanley,
Yes,
leaving us.
yes.
Sorry to
Done
lose
such
you.
good work here.
Oh, thank you. Like I said, it's been pleasure working here last 3.5 years. It's more of a personal reason why I'm leaving. And that's really what it is.
Options, you know,
Yes.
it's, we understand,
Okay.
certainly understood. And you're not going far,
No, I'm not going
just
far.
over the bridge.
Yes.
You will have to get a passport to leave when you leave there, though. That's a thing.
I'll
of
go
that.
around.
Yeah. Well, good luck to you. We
Thank
we
you.
will
Good
certainly
luck, Al.
miss you here.
Thank you.
Resolution 294 is authorizing no parking and suspension of open container during a special event wedding October 1st. And that's at Suffolk Avenue, correct?
Correct. That's,
So some questions, is Chief still here? He was here earlier.
no,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had some questions on that because
I might be able to answer.
All right. I know we had some issues at a wedding that occurred at Newport Avenue this summer.
Yes.
We took into consideration all of those issues that were not city created. They were created by the wedding planner who didn't tell us, one, there was going to be 250 people at the wedding. Two, there was going to be an open bar.
Right.
So my concern is we don't want to ruin someone's day.
Right.
And I just want to make sure we took care of that this time through. I'm sure we did. Just a
I
question.
believe that they're using a local liquor license owner for the liquor license application for the event, and that resolves a lot of the liabilities that came into play on the previous wedding situation.
Yeah, that they were just showing up with a trunk and a bar. Right.
Correct. Yeah, I'm looking for that. So it's Funky Pickle
but in the resolution,
in the parking, in the resolution.
it's whereas consumption of alcohol is limited to that which is dispensed and or purchased from the approved and permitted vendor.
Approved and permitted vendor.
And insurances are all good on it. We got all the proper documentation on
Yep.
that. Okay, good. Like I said, the reason my questions are, we want to make sure we're not ruining some young couple's day.
Right.
Resolution 295, approving submission of corrective action plan for 2021 audit. Al, you want to give us a update on that or?
Basically at the end of, in December of 2021, there was a bond payment that was due in December and it was mistakenly the right amount was paid on that amount, but it was flipped from incorrect fund. And it wasn't caught until January, so we flipped it, but it didn't
Okay,
make the audit in time for 21. So we have to do a plan to correct that and send it in.
okay. Resolution 296, authorizing the city of Ventnor to enter into a shared service agreement with the city of Longport to purchase the Forerunner software package through a LEAP implementation grant program. Jimmy, that's our CRS work that we do through that Forerunner, through our flood elevations and things like that.
The maps and everything that we have trouble with now obtaining, that's all going to be on this software.
So this is an upgrade.
Yeah,
Okay,
it'll help the citizens quite a bit because we should be able to see the elevation of their grade and how high they want to raise their home, what have you. It gives us a lot more information
okay.
quickly.
And it's a partnership with Longport, Margate and us through the county.
Yeah.
Good.
Right.
I think Longport's the lead on that one. Just, okay.
So over 3 years, it's notable that it's not, it's a $6,750. So it's $2,000 roughly. a year.
Correct. Yep.
Good.
Yep.
It's a good,
And using it with the other municipalities lowered that number from what it
Right.
normally would have been.
Right.
Yep. Resolution 297, authorizing renewal of interlocal service agreement with Atlantic County Improvement Authority Administration of the program income from small cities grants and housing rehabilitation. This is something, again, we do every year.
Right.
To reauthorize that. They handle rehabilitations that are funded through various grants from the state and federal government.
right.
Questions there?
Nope.
Good. Resolution 298 is awarding professional engineering services to Colliers Engineering for planning and design and permitting associated with the Ventnor Avenue traffic signal optimization project. This is the area up in North Beach. We got a grant from New Jersey Planning, Transportation Planning Grant, and we submitted our project to them, to the DOT for approval, and they took too long to review it. So their process would have had to kick that to next year. Ed went out after we talked about it and went out and actually got a design firm RFP done on our own, and it'll speed up that process.
Great.
We'll get one of our pool of engineers to design it and then put that out to RFP, and that'll meet the deadlines for the funding in the next 2 years. We had to have it designed by the end of this year. The DOT's delay, we submitted it 5 months ago to them.
Right.
And they took 5 months to get back and say, you got to change this, this, and this. We can do that, but they wanted us to do it
Jimmy.
through their process. It's quicker if we do it on our own.
But the grant funding's in hand,
It is,
Right.
but not in hand. It's in
process.
the process. Yes.
And
It's
this-
reserved for us
And these are lights that are from Dorset Avenue north.
towards Atlantic City.
Towards Atlantic
Correct.
City,
Yes.
You could
Yep.
say, because those are not county.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. These are ours.
Yes,
Oh.
I'm looking for additional agendas that are all out. Unfortunately, I didn't, I mean,
You can have mine. Who needs one? It's got some red check marks on it, but it's, if somebody needs one, there it is.
It's gonna be a collector's item. Mike.
Yeah, right. I don't think so. Then next we'll have bills and payroll. We have a discussion item. Only one is listed on the agenda I have, but you also had one as well. I'm
I
sorry.
missed two. Did you want the resolution?
Oh, I have the last one, 302, which is authorizing hiring of Amy Winterbottom as clerk 1. She'll be in the code department and she is replacing an employee that left. Is that the one I missed?
Yeah, did you went, I'm sorry, I might have been, we did the homestead rebate? Did you?
No, I didn't see that one.
We got homestead rebate
There it is. I missed 299.
and then 300.
Yep. Resolution 299 is authorizing a refund of homestead credit, tax homestead credit. And then 300 is approving the promotion of John Connor to Assistant Supervisor of Public Works. We had gone through that process. He had to hit some plateaus, take some tests. Still has to pass a test, but he's gotten the civil service approval for that job title. So we'll be moving him into that job title. And then we do 302, which is be the hiring of Amy Winterbottom in the code office. Sorry, I did skip those. No, got excited about traffic signals. Then we will do the bills and payroll, and then discussion items. We have short-term rentals, and we have the parking meter app issue.
4 hour time limit in the business district.
Okay. Which one you want to do first?
I would think short-term rental is more what folks are here to talk
Okay.
about, I think.
All right. So the reason that is on the agenda, we had several residents come to us, a month or so ago,
Yes. So
and
some
raise
of our-
issues. And we've had issues reported to us with varying issues they have: noise, traffic, parking, trash, too many people coming in and out, occupancy loads, things of that nature. So we started talking about it at a meeting, like I said, a month or so ago. But we wanted to hear from more of our residents on your concerns. We know Buffalo Avenue, North Buffalo has their concerns. We want to hear what the general concern is from everybody. We've had some input come back to us from Airbnb operate. I shouldn't say Airbnb. It's like Kleenex. It's a brand name. Some would say toilet paper, but we're not going to go there. We're going to short-term rental is the term on it. So from how I look at it is, I think we want to extend the minimum stay from right now. They can do one night.
Right.
And the theory there is these are one night people coming into town, partying, going to Atlantic City for a show, not spending any dollars here in Ventnor City, and causing issues in our neighborhoods, coming home late, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. They're loud. These are the complaints that we've received. You've gotten them as well.
So I did speak to the police chief a couple of times and again today about that. And his feeling is that the one night rental does contribute to quality of life issues on those
Right.
near those areas. We do have a record of some complaints in particular homes. We're going to cross-reference with Jimmy's department the short-term rental addresses that we have and enter them into our CAD system that notes the calls to service. So we'll have some real data on what it is probably in the next week or a few days. And that's why this is a discussion item. But there is a, not just, there are locations that I've talked to residents about where they advertise them as a single night
Right.
party.
I've seen it too. Yeah.
And sometimes in some cases they exaggerate what the size, what the location is like, and then it becomes an ongoing issue for a neighborhood. So I think that a one night is too short. And I also have mixed feelings about a week. I think that may be too long.
Yeah,
You don't want to eliminate the ability for someone from a business standpoint to not be able to rent a weekend, but then lose the rest of the week. So I think that's what we have to decide on is
Right.
how much that
One-
limitation should be.
One of the ideas that I had heard was that you could do a rental once every 5 days. So if you wanted to rent for 2 or 3 days, you could do that, but that precludes you from renting the rest of that week.
Right.
So if you were going to rent a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then you would have to preclude the rest of that week.
Right.
It stops the in and outs coming back and forth.
And from a rental manager standpoint, you lose a large portion of your
You would,
rental income.
right?
So I don't know that I'm comfortable with that. If the goal is to eliminate the one night rental problem. And that's
Well,
the
it
only
was
problem we have.
more than just one night. It was just coming in, even if they're coming in for 2 nights,
Right.
they're not really using Ventnor other than the place to
Right.
lay their head and create problems. I'm sorry, it's not the public portion yet. You will get your chance to speak when we open it up
So
to
as
the
soon as-
public.
So I
Some
appreciate
decorum, please.
that's what we want to hear your input. So when it's time, you have to come up to the microphone. You have to state your name and address. It's a legal part of this process. You have to state your name and address. You can get in line in front of the microphone. Each person has 3 minutes, and then we'll talk about it and we'll hear what you have to say. All right. But it's not a conversation in the public portion yet.
Right.
So when we get to that point in the agenda, you can start to queue up.
which is next, but
So,
so that's where I'm not set on it. I want to hear from them. I want to hear their ideas. We heard a lot from residents that have a problem with this.
so on the flip side, some people that do, that manage short-term rentals said that if you limit it to only 3 nights, as you proposed, as we both just discussed
Mhm.
Pat, in the last meeting, and had a 3-night minimum, but a 5-night re-up, that you would eliminate people that are coming in for like families that come in for particular conventions. And that's a large part of what those people, the people that manage those properties look forward to. As a business owner, I would be feeling like I would be hedging, I would be, curtailing my investment if I could only do-
Understood. But you're operating a business in a residential zone.
You are.
That's the
So that's
the offside of that.
right.
And that's the problem that a lot of towns are having.
Right.
I see it, in my business world, planning and zoning, that's what I see. Atlantic City has pretty much precluded them from areas outside the tourism district. They don't want to see them in residential areas.
Right.
So they're backing off of those in those areas. Margate's minimum week. That's what you get.
Yeah. So I don't think there's a real one size fits all.
No, I agree.
And so I wonder, and we'll hear from the public what the pace is of on season, off season. But I also have to think it will also come down to a question of what does it mean to the character in the long term of Ventnor? Do we
Right.
want, because other cities have a really and we're not an ocean city, but they have a different pace. And the question is, what is the
Agreed.
correct pace for Ventnor that's fair to the residents and the business?
I
people
agree.
who are
I'm
running-
looking for a happy medium somewhere is what we're trying to do.
Right.
We have issues that are created in neighborhoods that residents shouldn't have to put up with.
Right.
You also have people that have operated these short-term rentals for a while, and they have an investment here. And it's a source of people to come to our community. I use short-term rentals when I go places.
Mhm.
So that's what we want to hear. You want to do
I will say, just to reiterate, that the police department does see a 1-night rental as a negative. And there are cases that happen on a regular basis that if the 1 night was extended to at least 2 night, it would be in their mind, it alleviates some of those problems.
okay. Do we want to do the parking discussion or go into the
I-
short-term public portion and then,
I think we teed up the short-term rental
okay.
portion.
With that, we'll open it up to the public on the I'll need a motion to open it up to the public on short-term rental.
Motion to open the discussion items up to short-term rental.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're going to do in the room first, and then we'll go on to our Zoom meeting and do it there as well. So if whoever wants to speak, please come up to the microphone, state your name, your address, and give us your input.
I have a class to take in half an hour. It's on? Yes. Good evening. My name is Joe Iannizelli. This is my wife Isabel. You all. Good evening. My name is Joe Iannizelli. This is my wife Isabel. We live at 6306 Winchester Avenue, which is a duplex. We live upstairs on the top 2 floors. For years, we've always rented our first floor out as a year-round rental. My mother-in-law lived there for 10 years before she passed away from COVID in 2020. And we had discussed, she was 94. So we had discussions that we didn't want to deal with a year-round rental anymore, paying the heat, paying electric, all that stuff. We had decided then, we didn't even know what Airbnb was at the time. But we wanted to do a summer rental. One of my coworkers, Mike Lemaine, who I believe you all know, he was doing Airbnb for a couple of years. He turned us onto it, and we have no complaints. We pay our fee every year. We get inspected every year. We have house rules that when everyone checks in, we tell them the house rules. We recommend, and let me tell you, we only rent to families. We vet every person that rents, every family that rents. We have 2 bedrooms, so we limit it to 4 people. Like Jimmy told me, 2 people per bedroom, right, Jim? And that's all we've ever done when it was a long-term rental, year-round rental, or a short-term rental. We have a 2-night minimum. We
You
have,
set yourself.
we set it ourselves. Yes. You can set the minimums on Airbnb. We have a 2-night minimum. Most of our people stay, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, never 7. So if you're considering doing a 7-night minimum rental, you're just going to blow us out of the water and we won't even do it anymore.
Okay.
But the people that stay in our apartment, they do utilize vendor business. They spend money in the restaurants. At the they went to the seafood fest this week.
Right.
One of the vendors at the seafood fest came up and thanked me for recommending his restaurant to our tenants.
Yeah.
So I think the problems we're having with these short-term rentals are few and far between. I don't think it's a huge problem. I think it's some owners. And if, like you said, you have the CAD system and the police can identify those homeowners, you should penalize those homeowners, not everyone.
Right.
All right. You have anything to add?
Thanks, Joe.
No?
Thanks.
So one of the things, and we said this when the Buffalo Avenue people came in, you have to report it to us. A lot of
Right.
times people don't report it.
Right.
So then it goes unsaid and we don't know that there's a problem because when that license comes up next year, we can have a listing of, all right, you had 6 noise complaints, 5 trash complaints, and you're
And they should be penalized.
right.
We even put recycling here.
Right. And you don't issue them the license anymore.
I want to piggyback on one other thing you guys had said about comparing us to Ocean City and Atlantic City. And we're a residential town. We are a residential town. We have no hotels here.
Right.
We have no motels.
Agreed.
Ocean City does.
Right.
Atlantic City has a tourism district. So the only place short-term rentals will be
Right.
are in residential neighborhoods.
Right.
But that being said, there are a lot of them, probably most of them, that don't have any complaints.
Right.
That's all I have.
I don't disagree with you,
Right.
but we have to look at it from the complaints we are getting.
I
So-
understand, but you can't punish the
Yeah.
lot for the few.
Right. And by the way, people have been renting their homes and downstairs apartments in this area for a long time.
Forever.
We're looking for better, not
Right. I understand.
for,
And I trust you guys. You guys always do what's right for the city, for the citizens, the business owners, and the employees.
thanks.
Thank
Joe.
you.
Thanks, Joe. And I agree with you. 7 nights is too long. I think that would be too long of a minimum. I agree with you there.
Yeah, like my wife was just saying, you can corroborate that people do spend money in town. Just read some of the reviews. All our reviews mention, thank you for, recommending this restaurant. Thank you. We send them to the Saturday night beach concerts, to the Wednesday night at ski beach,
Right.
farmers market,
Right.
we advertise the town.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
It's a little shorter. Hey, everybody, Jeff Giangulio. First, I want to start off saying I'm very against rowdy neighbors. That said, little background about me. I own a company and we handle about 80 to 90 short-term rentals around the country. So I've been involved. I have 4 North Oakland. That's where we live sometimes, and then we rent that as well. But we handle a lot of other ones around here too. Played rugby for years, so I don't have the best memory in the world. So I'm more of a problem and solution guy. So I was writing down some of your problems, and from all the other cities that I've seen, I've been to Chicago, Philadelphia, Atlantic City at some point. Some of the things you guys brought up, I just wanted to throw out some solutions that I've seen. So the one nights, we don't allow them in anywhere, all the way across the board. We don't allow one nights, whether it's here, Chicago, Philadelphia, wherever it might be. We don't allow them. I would say I believe in a 2-night minimum. One night, you're just asking for trouble. As far as the noise and issues, that's number one. One of the things I have seen is we screen our guests thoroughly. We get their IDs. We make them promise this, that, and whatever. You could actually have like a little test when you go to get the CO. How do you screen your guests? Make sure that people are actually doing it. Noise monitoring devices. So we actually have noise monitoring devices in our house that I have a team that's always on the phone, on the text messaging 24/7, 365 days a year. If the noise goes off, they're reaching out to shut it down at that point. And also, unfortunately, us owners, we have all these laws, we have all these rules. We say no more than, if it's 6, no more than 6 allowed. Sometimes people lie and the guests are bad too. And it just kind of sucks. So give the police the right and the way to really hit those guys who are trespassing. If you say 6 and they got 15 people in there, hit all the rest of them, right? Just have the police be able to really hit those guys with trespassing. The word does go around. The bad actors will get it. I don't mess around in Ventnor. I'm not going to party in Ventnor because I'm going to be in big trouble if I do. So that's for the noise and issues. As far as coming to AC for short bookings and everybody goes to AC, I don't totally see that. I mean, I write in my check-in message, we have go to Make Arts, go to Santucci's, and go to Nucky's. And a lot of them, they write back, wow, I love Nucky's, I love Santucci's. I'm not even going to AC, right? So I do see that. There are ones, of course, they're going to go to AC, but I think it is the businesses. Trash, what you could throw out there. We personally have a private service. It's called Flynn's Bins, local company. They're awesome. They always take our trash out. They've been doing it every week.
Terry's son. Yeah.
Yeah, they're awesome. And they do it every single week, 52 weeks a year. So
That's on the operator though.
what's that?
That's on the operator, right?
Yeah, but you can require it.
Yeah.
You can require that you have a private service, whether it's a friend, family member, cleaner, whatever it is, that you got to get the trash out. So, I mean, overall, those are just some solutions I see. And I'm with everybody else. If you go to 7 nights, it's going to be pretty painful. I like 2, and I like on top of 2, putting in some things such as maybe if you want, you have to have noise devices, 3 strike rule. Just don't hurt the good guys and the businesses, but let's hurt the bad guys.
Can I ask you what the noise, I mean, I know there's some smoke alarms that have those noise, but is there a specific noise?
There's a few of them.
device?
We personally use something called Noise Aware.
Noise.
So it monitors the noise level, and then it'll send a text to my team saying, hey, the noise is too high.
Right.
Works wonders, actually.
Sir,
Sir,
you can't yell out from the audience. We're recording this. You have to be at the microphone. Thank you.
So, yeah, so I mean, I've been doing this for a while responsibly, and I'm here for any questions for solutions. Don't want the bad actors, but want to figure out a way to make everybody happy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
No problem.
I appreciate the suggestions too. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
we're not in this business. So thank you.
I think the noise aware thing is something that is really part of the complaints. We do get complaints. I mean, the one Oxford or Buffalo Avenue, we checked it today and there hasn't been a complaint since end of 2001. Only one complaint. 2001.
Right. Because they were afraid to complain. They
Right.
said that when they were here. So hopefully that'll stop. So,
Right.
Jean Antolini, 6501 Monmouth Avenue. Long-time Ventnor resident. Just to give you a little background, I was the founder and organizer for the Knights in Ventnor Go Green. Did the pickup posse, cleanup. I've been a champion of Ventnor my whole life since I've been here. Ventnor's landscape has changed radically in the last few years. More upscale housing, more new businesses. I personally feel that influx of new businesses are because of the demand of the new businesses is because of the short-term rentals. We have a 2-night minimum. Our people, they'll walk to the restaurants. They feel like they've found a real hidden gem when they come here. Most of the people didn't even know Ventnor existed. We have a small 240 square foot apartment. We are in an owner occupied. It's very small. I think that something should be carved out for the owner occupied units. I don't want noisy tenants. I have a camera. I can see if there's, squeaking another person in. I nip it in the bud right away. Just being in Ventnor, and I don't want loud tenants. And I understand the anger of the people that don't want the trash but I just don't think you should punish the people who are trying to do the right thing. Something has to be carved out for the smaller units. Even a 5-night stay would decimate the small places. So I don't think there should be any restriction. I mean, 1 night I would never do 1 night. It's just too much work. But 2-3 nights, okay. But to go farther than that is just, it would kill us. And if you go on a place that's been red flagged a couple times, then let them lose their mercantile license. Let them not get a renewal for a year. I just, it feels like one size does not fit all, just as you said, and
Right.
to carve out some exceptions for owner occupied places, smaller places, people that are trying to do the right thing with the 2-night minimums, 3-night minimums. I would understand that. So
Is that the only carve out you see for owner occupied and that smaller? And I understand it's a different type of an animal,
it is, it's very different.
but because
I think the carve out should be for the smaller units. Like, I don't know if you guys have a record of where are the complaints coming in? Are they the large beach houses or is it across the board, all short-term rentals?
Well, it's not every
So-
location. Like you said, you have good operators, you have people that monitor it, like yourself and Jeff and Joe.
it's a
You also have a mixed bag. You have bad operators that don't care.
there's some condos and mid rises, and there's some large homes that operate as sort of like a one night party house. And
It feels like the onus should fall on the owner.
Yeah.
So if I'm a bad actor, my neighbors or the city should contact me. I just don't think the whole city should be punished for a few bad actors.
Understood. Thank
And
you.
that's-
can I ask
Good
you,
seeing you.
Good evening. My name is Salvatore Perfacci. I am a year-round Ventnor resident and a homeowner at 14 South Buffalo, and I work as a local hospice nurse. I don't bring up my profession for any sympathy or recognition. I bring it up because, as any healthcare worker will tell you, rest and relaxation are incredibly important due to the nature of our work. Short-term rentals, of which I live above one and across the street from several others, are disruptive, attract partiers, and people that do not appear to respect Ventnor and instead are only visiting for a quick weekend getaway to Atlantic City. They find Airbnb rentals cheaper, alternative to the casinos. And I mentioned that there are ample hotels for the people that would wish to visit for a weekend. I was actually not aware that there aren't any hotels in Ventnor. In the several years I've lived here and my experience with the Airbnb below my apartment, I can honestly say that every issue I've had with the weekend or nightly rental. The people that have stayed for a week or a month have had more or less assimilated into the community for the times they are here. They have not left excessive trash or empty bottles. They are here with their families to spend a week at the beach and are generally much more pleasant to deal with. To speak to the complaints, we don't want to live in a community where we have to call the police on our neighbors. I own the upstairs of an upstairs downstairs unit, and I deal with my downstairs neighbor all the time. I don't want to have to call the police on him every time there's a complaint. And I would ask that you please implement a weekly or at least 3 days or whatever we're talking about, like our neighbors in Margate and Longport enjoy, or at least a 3-night minimum to avoid weekend rentals. And I thank you for your time.
thank you.
Thank you, Sal.
So Mimi D'Souza, 122 North Princeton Ave. So unlike Jeannie, the properties that I rent are bigger homes specifically designed for families, multi-generational families. And one of the things for us is, how do we encourage people to get to Ventnor on the off season? Because people, especially post-COVID, people really want to get together with family and friends for meaningful. So for examples, for some people, we have a 2-night minimum. We set it on all the online systems we use. We screen our tenants rigorously. We don't allow them to auto book. So if you asking host compliance to look at what properties are renting, they can see if those properties allow auto booking on those websites, which means there's no screening process that goes on for the tenant. You could force the landowners, property owners, to be required to screen their tenants or their management companies and not allow them to auto book. Because then you get the people, there's no discretion, and they're more likely to try and get in and party regardless of the length of stay. We do 2-night minimums because we want people to come for 2 nights to really enjoy Ventnor. They might have a family event like a wedding, but the other night they want to be able to do something local. Some have connections to the community, some of them coming from out of town. We've had people come from England for a family wedding and they stay at our houses. And unfortunately, we've had people get together for funerals too. You know, this is the times we live in. And they like that we have bigger homes because none of their homes nowadays are big enough for their family to get together. And by going into the out shoulder seasons with 2-night minimums, we've expanded the ability for other businesses in Ventnor to benefit from that. These people are not going into the casinos. For example, I had 2 renters who were in part of the Ironman. There were 6 people participating, another family member staying. I ran into them at Sundays on that night after the Ironman. They went to Sapore for dinner. They're like, oh my God, the portions are huge. And then they're at Sundays. They're like, what ice cream should I pick? And I'm like, well, they're all good. You know, take a bunch home with you. But this was the first time in Ventnor, first time the AC Ironman. Obviously, they're not partying and they loved it and they want to come back, right? And maybe they don't bring the whole family next time, but maybe they rent Jeannie's little thing, the husband and wife who participated. But this is what I'm saying. We actually have digital message boards in all of our properties. We learned this from another landowner. And we send messages to our tenants, not just a static message of what Ventnor restaurants to go to with reviews, but like, hey, there's an event at Ski Beach this Wednesday night, a concert. It's free. Go see. Take your lawn chair. Or Saturday, the what band is playing on. So we send messages to people all the time. We'll send messages about the Fall Fest. We'll send messages about the Down Beach Seafood Fest. And people really appreciate our interaction with them. And they can contact us at any time about an issue, a leaky faucet, a door handle that doesn't work. We're very responsive all the time, not just in the summer. So once again, I know I'm being a little bit redundant, but there are ways to solve for this with your current ordinances and maybe tweaking what's required of a mercantile license in terms of checks and balances, screening your tenants. That will solve the problem for everybody. And again, I know people don't like calling the police,
We're
but
at time.
but you really should
We need that.
reach out.
We
You
do
to-
need that.
You need that no matter what.
So
And
we are-
I tell people, if you can't get a hold of me, call the police if there's a problem with one of my
Okay.
my renters.
So question, what screening questions do they have? We're trying to keep this to 3 minutes per person because there's people behind.
We actually require an age minimum of 28 years.
Okay.
When you rent a car, there's a penalty if you're younger. If you're 28 years old, and we require that, people send us a list of the names of the people that are going to be there. They got to be 28 years old or other. And then once they book, we get all the driver's license pictures of everybody who's going to be in that property. You know, obviously it's the grandmother and stuff like that, they're over that. But
All right, thank
so that's one of the things we require, and that eliminates a whole bunch of problems.
great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Pat Litz, 200 block North Sacramento. Thanks so much for coming together and open this discussion. Really appreciate it. You guys are doing great. I have a duplex and I rent the first floor for the summer season to summer tenants. In the off season, I do use the short rental platform Airbnb, and it's been a lifesaver. It really kind of threw me a little more revenue, just the ability to kind of, have a little bit more with regard to my place and being able to manage it. My guests in the off season typically comprise of like the 2-day weekend stays. And those people, just this month since Labor Day, Courtney had written me and said, hey, my friends and I booked this weekend and we loved it. It's so close to the beach and many restaurants. Can't wait to come back. She's coming back in October. Alexis said, hey, Lee, 3 adults total. I've stayed here with my friend Destiny. Absolutely love the places. Can't wait to get back and have a mimosa. Brad wrote me on September 3rd. And he said, my girlfriend and I are looking for a few days in Ventnor to enjoy the shore. I used to go to Ventnor a bunch with my family growing up, and I hope to visit some of my favorite old spots, catch some sun on the beach, and grab some brunch. Looking forward to the stay, Brad. And then Mike, he said, hey, can I check in early? I'd like to drop my stuff off and go to the beach. None of these people going to Atlantic City, and this is just since Labor Day. These are my most recent guests, but I assure you they are representative of all the guests I've been lucky enough to meet and hosted over the years. I understand there are a few bad apples out there, but that's far from the standard. I think you had mentioned there's over 5,000 legal represented Airbnbs or short-term rentals, or 500.
Yeah, 5,000. Wait a minute.
Jimmy,
I
do you
think
have a number?
we're in the 270, 280 range
Oh, okay.
registered.
Is that our number? And under 300?
Okay.
Yeah.
And of the 300 registered, I mean, I can't imagine there's been anywhere close to that many police reports. Don't know though. And I'd love some more transparency there. All the guests I've hosted have been indicative of Courtney, Alexa, Mike, and Brad. Over 100 stays, and I've given over 100 5-star reviews, none of which you guys can see. I'd love to share them with you so you can see how great a benefit these guys have been to me. Personally, my neighbors can attest, I've never had a problem with a guest that stayed less than a week. If anything, it's the opposite. I'm sure I speak for a lot of hosts here when I say my guests that are coming to Ventnor via short-term stays are the people coming to respectfully enjoy our small town, patronize our businesses, and are playing a huge role in what makes Ventnor so special for everyone lucky enough to have been here and be here. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pat Mulligan, live at 6 South Baton Rouge. We own a duplex and we do different things with it, but sometimes we rent for short-term rental stays. We also live on part of it sometimes and we switch. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. We also have done Airbnb in Los Angeles until Airbnb, they squeeze us out of the market with all the rules and regulations. And so we sold our property or in the process of selling our property there. All the folks that talked about the benefits of the small term homeowner, I agree with. We are little guys. We own residents. We are not a commercial operation. I think it's bad enough that we have to buy mercantile licenses. I totally understand the COs and other things, but we are not commercial operations. And so to add extra burdens on us, like requiring us a sound detector or paying for a trash service is just, I think, unrealistic and unfair. I don't know, I know the commissioners know, but I don't know if everybody knows that we pay as rentals less than 30 days. We pay almost the highest mercantile license fee for mercantile licenses any other business, more than your local liquor store, more than any restaurant, more than the Acme. And our rates for these mercantile licenses have been raised from $50 in 2014 all the way up to $500. In fact, last year it was raised twice, from $350 to $500. I don't know why. I couldn't find any information on that, but it had been changed in a matter of a month. So I already feel like we're being penalized. I've not ever had a complaint. No one's ever called. My neighbors, when I get to the house on Saturdays to make sure everything's okay as people are moving out and in, they tell me, oh, I loved your guests. They were great. Never have a problem with your people. And we just don't. I don't know who those operators are doing it, but what I would rather see than these more restrictions or limited on the days is a 3 strikes rule or something similar like that, so that these bad operators can get out of business here in Ventnor. We don't want them. I mean, we do 2-night minimum stays during the off season only because it's not worth it for one night. I don't know anybody that does a 1-night stay, really. It's not worth it, except I don't know what these crazy people are doing. I don't know the over occupancy. Why is that not being addressed by the code enforcement? They could take some of our $500 fees and hire another code enforcement officer. I'm not sure. But I think some of these things are based on prejudice, hearsay. So the police chief thinks we'd have less trouble if it was a 2-night minimum stay rather than a 1. We still haven't seen any evidence of actual calls or arrests being made. I think the council needs to take that into account. And I have tons of information like how it hurts a town when you start adding restrictions on short-term rentals. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Renee Battle. I live at 9 North Sacramento, and I've been Airbnb-ing the upstairs floor of my duplex for the last 5 years. I book exclusively through Airbnb. So they have their own screening process. And yes, it's just basically a verification process. But I know that that is being addressed through Airbnb. If I have an issue with a tenant there, I have recourse that way. I also have a 4-night minimum, and I after a little, pretty quick learning curve, I realized a 4-night minimum was perfect for my purposes because a quicker turnover can create a lot of churn if my cleaner drops out, whatever. It can create a lot of churn. So 4-night is kind of the sweet spot for me. And if there is, I'm glad to hear that you don't seem to be interested in a 7-night minimum because the minimums can create tremendous gaps in bookings. Since I do live below the apartment that I Airbnb, for a number of reasons, including size and amenities in my own apartment, all of that. If I have a gap of up to 3 nights, I'll often have a gap of 1 to 2 nights. Sometimes it's 3. Sometimes I'm like, okay, now I can be loud because it won't affect the people upstairs.
What's the address again?
9 North.
I'm kidding.
But I found out the hard way when there were toddlers upstairs that kind of ran the length of the apartment that I have very little insulation between the floors. So I'm very conscientious about my guests, about myself. So if I have a few nights between, it's not going to make or break me. And that's not a big deal. But if it goes up to a 7-night minimum, that can be up to 6 nights that my apartment upstairs is sitting vacant.
Right.
That is my household second income.
Right.
And that, considering that my rentals, my Airbnb, I have it open, available year round. It's really only mid-May through mid-September. And that mid-September part is because I also get the Ironman competitors or supportive family sometimes. If I lose income in that period of time, that cripples the entire purpose of me having an Airbnb.
Right. Your break-even point just became harder to reach.
Right. And I'm not looking to break even.
Right.
You know, this is adds to the retirement fund. Like this is
Sure.
a personal endeavor. So that's something that's very important to me. I get great guests. I really do. I feel really lucky. I think I can kind of picture the ones that were maybe a little off, not messy, not destructive, not terribly noisy. And I would like to point out that Ventnor City already has a 10:30 p.m. cap of noise. And I list that on the flyer that's on the refrigerator and that's in the binder. And Airbnb already prohibits parties. So again, they can't enforce, but there is recourse through Airbnb that way. And with Ventnor City already having a noise cap every night, not later on weekends or anything. There's already a noise cap. It needs to be enforced. And that does involve sometimes the uncomfortable. And I understand the discomfort of calling the police on your neighbors because they are not enforcing their own rules. They're not enforcing Ventnor's rules.
Right.
So somebody
Okay.
kind of has to, but those are already in place.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Keith Gibbons. I'm not sure what address I'm supposed to give you, but I'm from Gloucester Township. I own a few properties here.
Can you speak into the mic? They're having trouble hearing you back there.
Okay. I thought I was, but I guess I wasn't.
No,
close
you
enough.
gotta
Speak
be,
up a little
you gotta
bit.
be real close to it.
Okay. The short.
So what is the
rental-
address in Ventnor that you own?
Ventnor, I give you 9 North Baton Rouge.
Okay.
So at that location there, I have a year-round tenant in one of the units who through COVID lost her job and she does cleaning for me. So turnovers at other locations, she's able to go over and now she has a little, side gig, for that. So it's helping people in our community, I'm sure too. And, in cleaning aspects as well. The complaints I understand from people, but there are already ordinances in place for everything that was mentioned as the problems. In Gloucester Township where I live, they just recently banned renting out your pools, which I thought was absolutely insane we the people give the government power to protect our rights, not take them away. And their logic behind that was people gonna have a big party. There was a shooting at a neighboring town. A shooting is already illegal. It doesn't, what is putting a ban on my pool renting
Stick
out?
to the short-term rental for us.
Right,
please.
but it's the same, same logic. If putting into more regulations on us is just, I think.
Do you have more than, do you have a limit of the nights that you?
I do, yeah. I self-impose. I mean, I don't think anybody really wants that, but you implied that no
what
one
is-
spends
what's the
money in
limit that
Ventnor
you-
if they're here for one night. I think banning it altogether is ensuring that they're not going to be spending money and they're going to be going to another.
We're
town.
not looking to ban it. We understand we're a resort town and this is a way to get people into our community. We understand that. We're looking for information here tonight. We don't have all the information. That's why we're asking you guys who
Yeah.
run
Right.
these. We're
Right.
asking for some of the input from the neighbors that have issues with it. We're going to hear from Jimmy after you guys are done because he's got some ideas on it and the issues that he sees from the code enforcement office. You know, we're a small town, we're small staff. So the fact one of the comments was, you know, if they're over occupying, you should fine them. We're not there standing at the door taking tickets to know how many people are going in and out of the house. That's going to have to be done by the operators. But if we see the violations continue, and you're right, we can withhold these mercantile licenses. And we will put that, we have that in place. If we get enough complaints for one particular location, they'll get shut down. And that is definitely a way to handle this. And that's something that we have in place, but we don't get, you know, we were having the complaints a lot at Buffalo at the beginning. That seems to have abated a little bit. But these guys are saying they're not calling. So that we have to make sure that if you have a problem with a short-term rental, they're not going away, guys. I'm telling you that. I'm not banning them. It's something in our community that is I don't want to call it a service, but it's an opportunity for people to come into our community. I think we all agree on that. We're not going to ban them. We're looking for input as to how we can better let them operate. And I took up about half of your time. So
Yeah.
I'm going to restart that.
Played yourself out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
So
need that on my all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much more to say about that other than there are already, rules in place that need to be enforced. Unfortunately, all of our jobs are not easy at times. So if the police are complaining, that's a little bit more difficult. I mean, I'm nothing against the police, but it might
It's
be
not the
more.
police that are complaining. They're
Town's too
yeah.
small and can't handle that. Maybe they need to hire another person.
No, it's not the police that are
we're not
complaining.
complaining. It's part of their job.
Right.
And in fact, I think we need to break the stigma of people for various reasons that don't want to call the police for parking or this case or in some other cases. I think that they're there to serve. And if there is
Correct.
something that's legitimate, they're there to de-escalate problems and they're there to enforce. It's police enforcement, not police interpretation. They're there to enforce the rules that we have them. That's what we're here to discuss is really the time period of the short-term rentals. Is 1 too short and is 7 too long? So.
At 7 is too long. Yes.
All right.
And
Not everybody can
yeah.
afford that. It's not, in Ocean City, I get $9,000 a week.
Right.
People can't afford that.
And we're not Ocean City.
Right.
No.
So
We understand. Thanks.
Thanks, Keith.
Hey, good evening. I just want to start by thanking you for taking the time to hear all these and come to a solution. It seems like everyone is being really reasonable. My name is Melanie Watson. My husband and I own a property at 122 North Avalon.
Right into the mic.
You got to speak up. They
Okay.
can't hear you.
122 North Avalon.
North Avalon, yes. We purchased that house because we love it here and we hope to retire there one day. We're counting down the days, honestly. In the meantime, the goal is to rent it, obviously, to cover the costs and hopefully make a little money. I rent 7 days, Saturday to Saturday in the summertime, and in the off season, I have a 2-night minimum. I have experienced the bad parts of Airbnb as a neighbor. We used to live in Philadelphia and there were some real problematic houses there. And it's so I completely sympathize with that. And they were largely due to a one night and again, absentee landlords who don't take care of it. And it can definitely be a problem. I can understand that. At my place, I try to screen people as best I can. I usually almost always have really great tenants. I certainly made a couple of mistakes in the beginning. I work hard to make sure that all of the people visiting my house know about local restaurants, know about the farmer's market. I'll text them every Thursday and be like, go to the farmer's market tomorrow morning. They know about the concerts and they know about the local stores where they can buy art and, whatever souvenirs that they want to, and about the movie theater. In addition to that, I have a housekeeper who is a small local business and she comes. So in the off season with the 2-night, people really only rent weekends in the off season. So for her, that's extra that she doesn't normally get to. I have, we use Flynn's bins as well, actually. So it's another local service that we use. They're great.
We're going to charge him an advertising fee here. Too.
A lot of people here, like hearing that name.
There's Flynn's bins, the local, and I have a local handyman, I have a local plumber, a local electrician, and these are services I use more here than I would as a primary residence because those are things we do ourselves, but I can't. So I really do think that even a weekend stay in the off season, I know as like other owners have said from feedback from tenants that they are going to Santucci's or Cafe Agnes, or they're going to 7311 or Water Dog and Dorset when I told them the new place opened that they should try. So I think even on weekends, even though I do get some people, they come for a convention or a tournament or something in Atlantic City, they're still here and they are spending money here, even if it's only with the services that having that short-term rental provides. Most of the time I have people here for family vacations. I've had birthdays, weddings, funerals, people coming back to town to visit their family for holidays. Occasionally people stay for Thanksgiving or Christmas as well. So I do agree that the one night thing, so that's why I won't allow a one night stay, because it leads to trouble. I limit the number of people who can stay in the property and do the best that I can to enforce that at my end. I'm on good terms with the neighbors. They can all know how to reach me. So, I mean, I just want to echo what some of the other owners have said, that if there are some bad owners, they should definitely be penalized. But in general, I think it brings a good contribution to the local economy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know we are all hoping not to hear from me again this month, but Brenda Dowd, 125 South Little Rock Road, on behalf of the VBA and Mock Darts, we need the short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are the lifeblood of the restaurants pre and post season. They come into town. You have somebody who's here for a week. You have somebody who's here for a month. They're bringing their own food. They're cooking in the kitchen. Somebody who comes in for the weekend is eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner in our restaurants. They are buying their sweatshirt when they underpredicted the weather in my store. They're down at Mrs. B's. They shop local. They use our businesses. And as she just attested, they use the services post-stay and pre-stay. They're an important part of this business association and business districts, business community. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda.
Yeah.
Good evening, Tim Kreischer, Ventnor. I'm sitting in the back and I'm getting the shakes because I sat in your chair and heard many of these same things under different circumstances, but dealing with noise, overcrowding, trash, same church, different pew. So didn't deal with short-term rentals.
Same church and same pews.
Yeah. So, we did some things back then that were very successful in dealing with it. One of the things you touched on, Commissioner, was if you have a certain number of convictions that you could revoke their rental license. I was heavily involved with implementing that. And we only had to do it once and it kind of cleared the problem up. And we did some other things I'd be glad to share with anybody that's interested. But I'm listening and I know your hands are tied in many of the things. I heard somebody talk about, they only rent to people over a certain age and they request their driver's license. You may not be in a position to do that, have an ordinance about that. It might be age discrimination where the city couldn't do that, but an individual could. Some of the other things, Commissioner, you mentioned that about overcrowding, that's a tough thing to prove. They're not staying here. They're just visiting. We're having a party.
Right.
So I know your hands are tied at certain things, but there are other things that could be done. One of the things I think are being missing, Brenda touched on it, is I don't rent B&B, but I do stay in B&B when we go away. If we're going away for 2 days, my wife ain't cooking. So if we go away for 5 days, we went away with my grandchildren and stepdaughter and son-in-law. We were 5 days. We went out 2 days. We cooked in 3 days. So if you extend the time limit to 5 days or 7 days, those people are going to visit a restaurant twice and eat in the kitchen 3 days. So that's 2 visits to a restaurant. If you don't restrict it and they rent 2 days, 2 days, and 2 days, that's 6 visits to a restaurant. That's much better for the business community than if you do it 5 days and now you're restricting visits to a restaurant. So I think everybody can agree that it's a problem. I guess I see Mr. Agnesino here is, in the police department. How many tickets have been issued for quality of life violations over the course of this?
We're comparing the actual addresses to the calls for service. So we don't have the exact number in the last season. There have been only anecdotal ones, but they've all kind of they've all kind of been about the same one night rental, couple parties, couple and that.
How many
came up.
tickets have been issued?
Well, we don't have that number just yet.
Okay. And the other thing I don't want to, I keep hearing that you need to call and complain because if we get 6 complaints or 7 complaints, we get a number of complaints against the property, we'll be able to prevent them from renting the next year. There's solicitors here, and Mr. Agnesino, I know, dealt with this years ago. I don't think it's sufficient to have complaints. You need to issue tickets and have it adjudicated in court where there's a conviction. That's the state animal house law, that if you have X number, and I'm sure your ordinance says the
Right.
same thing.
We have that
You
still in
need-
place.
You need convictions, not just complaints.
Right.
And so, and again, how many people from the city are certified to use the audible meter?
It's none. It's not a, it's,
Yeah,
there's too many, it's a lot of restrictions. You need to be certified for almost a PhD in the using
Well-
the device, and the device is expensive.
I think with the issues that we're dealing with, whatever it costs would be well worth it. And I think that should be the first thing before you even do ordinances, is that you invest in the noise meter, whatever it's called, and have people certified to do it. Because if what I'm hearing is accurate and you have a pattern of certain properties, they don't even need to call. You know that it's going to happen. It happened. I've heard people say it happens every weekend. Well, if it happens every weekend, you can put a code enforcement officer out there that's certified, or a trained certified police officer, and issue them a summons. And you issue 3 summonses, and you can deal with them. You can say, look, you plead guilty, we won't fine you.
If
Guilty, I'll do anything not to pay a fine. But now you're building that record that you can now have an adjudicated guilty plea in court.
There's a process to do that, Tim. So we understand how the court systems work,
But-
and
and I don't
know how to.
I keep hearing people saying, well, you need to call it because if we get X number of complaints,
No,
we
that's
can do
not
something. It's not X number of complaints.
correct. They have to
X
be
number of
convicted or
convictions.
found guilty, or at least issued a violation there.
But
It
what I'm
starts
hearing
with
is
call, right?
your hands are somewhat tied by your own inaction and not having somebody
It's
certified.
not inaction. That's an inaccurate statement.
Well, I just heard Commissioner Kriebel say you don't have anybody certified.
Most towns don't have noise meter certifications.
And maybe it's something, a shared service you could work on
Yeah.
Absolutely.
for us. And
that's
maybe
the
maybe
point,
the
but-
result here is that after is a 2-day minimum, we don't have the numbers that I think you're trying to, that you're creating here, that much of a cost would solve or would be ameliorate. Maybe a
Well-
2-night minimum would reduce the number. We're not talking about hundreds of cases here. We're talking about,
Well, again, I think it's money well spent. We've had this conversation before. You certainly have enough in surplus that you can spare a little bit of it to solve these problems for all these property owners and residents who are living with this problem. I forget what the cost of the noise meter was, but I think it'd be money well spent. And to solve the problem, because you have people here that have invested in properties with the intent of Airbnb, or have been able to survive because of Airbnb.
right.
If their hands are tied or they're limited, we may go back. Now we've had this influx of properties. We may go back to the old days where, well, I can't rent Airbnb. You know what? I'll just rent it. It's a big property. I can legally rent it to 18 people, charge them each $200 a month, $3,600 a month. I can get my $18,000 over the course of the year. And now we go back to having those problems that year-round residents have. You still have the parking issues. You still have the noise problems. You still have the trash problem. And now you got 6 kids in the school. 2 of them go to Atlantic City High School. That's $22,000 a year. So
Right.
there was
We
$44,000.
understand that.
I'm not
Thanks.
sure.
We're-
Well,
3
We're at the-
minutes.
We're at the 3
We're
minutes.
done.
Thanks, Tim.
that's the first time I've
can-
heard tonight, 3 minutes.
We can,
No, I've stopped 4 other people.
yeah.
Hey, John.
Hello, John Batista. I'm at 105 South Little Rock Avenue. I own the Carisbrook Inn Bed and Breakfast, maybe the only actual real commercial bed and breakfast in town. I also own a restaurant on the corner there, so I kind of see both sides of this. I just wanted to point out a couple of things that weren't really brought up. Around the one night rentals. We've operated for 20 years and we do a lot of one night rentals. In the summertime, we don't on the weekends because it's not worth it for us to do it. But when you get into the fall and winter time, more people are focused on work, so they tend to come down on a Saturday night only. Also, if you eliminate one night rentals, there are a lot of people that come in for events that only can be away for one night. Weddings, we just had it happen this past weekend. Several people came in not only for the seafood festival, but several people came in for a wedding event that happened at Nucky's restaurant.
John, you have a hotel though, right? You
Yeah,
have a hotel license. You're permitted to do one night stays there.
Yes, so I mean, I don't necessarily, I guests don't fall in the category of the short-term stays, but I do have some anecdotal data.
Understood.
But this wouldn't affect you if we changed to a 2-day limit. It wouldn't affect your ability. I'm just trying.
I don't know that for sure. I talked to Jimmy and he's going to get back to me about that. We are commercial properties. We're not residential properties. So I would expect probably not. We have use variances that we got through
Right. So just so everybody knows what we're talking about with Mr. Batista is that he got a use variance to allow the hotel essentially use there. So he's allowed to have one night stays there. So it should not affect him in that property. So, but good to research it. And you did provide me with some information. I'll share that with Jimmy and Commissioner Kriebel to see, what your guests are doing and
yeah, so I'm just pointing that out that, maybe you might want to look at focusing more on the bad actors or more on some guidelines to eliminate the problems. Something you might want to look at is the actual bed and breakfast ordinance that is in place in Ventnor that has some guidelines and rules as something to look at. The other thing I wanted to point out that nobody mentioned is over the years, we do have a lot of customers that come in and they may come in 1 or 2 nights, several times a year, and they learn to love Ventnor and they end up buying houses here. And so the short-term rental, no matter who's doing it, does give people an opportunity to see Ventnor and all the positive things. As a restaurant owner, I can say that most of these people staying, whether it's 1 night, 2 nights, 5 nights, they do frequent our ice cream shop. They do frequent our restaurant. And I'm sure they frequent the other restaurants in the neighborhoods around where they're at. So there is a positive impact to the business.
Great. Thanks, John. Thanks for coming out. How are you, Kim?
How's it going today?
Good.
My name's Kimberly Lane. I live at 122 North Princeton Avenue. And so I just want to bring up a couple of things. Tim, I agree with you about the 1 night minimum. We don't do 1 night minimums for the same reason a lot of people have mentioned. They're just a lot of work. And we tried the 3 night minimum about 4 years ago. And what we found is that people, they work on Fridays. They don't want to come down. They can't get off work. They've already kind of had their summer vacation. We're talking about shoulder time. They're not talking about in season. And so we went to a 2 night minimum and we found that the 2 night minimum sold out right away. So one of the things that I do is I'm very present. I go and introduce myself. We screen everybody. We have an age requirement. We have notices in the building on noise ordinance and I I talk about that often with them. So I just want to point out that we have this, and so it's posted. And like Mimi indicated, we have electronic boards that are pretty cool that we're able to push messages about trash. Trash goes out today. This goes out, this event. But the other thing that I want to talk about as a VBA member is that, one of the things that you pointed out, Lance, was that you think some of these people are going to Atlantic City. And I just, I don't agree with that. I have the little things that I've given you are some of the reviews that we've gotten on your own time. You can read them and you'll see that they're really visiting our town. They're coming in for the beach. They're spending their money here in Ventnor. Now that's not to say they may go visit Atlantic City, but they really don't. They really stay here. We push them to the restaurants here. We push them to breakfast here and the events here. And what we're finding is that people love Ventnor. They think it's a great little gym. And I think it would be sad if we went beyond the 2-night minimum, we would lose that. We would lose the influx of people coming in the shoulder season where it really benefits the businesses. And someone else had mentioned that we also use local people to do the cleaning of the houses. We use local people to do the yard work of the houses. And so I would start scaling all that back. And so that would also affect, I think, the community at large. So I know it's a little redundant, some of the things that I'm saying. I think the other thing that I would like to see you guys think about is when we're registering people at the city level, if they have a management company that's doing their rentals, that they have to register their management company. And if there's a problem with that particular rental and they get some repeats, that not only is the homeowner fined, but the management company is fined. And then the 3 strikes for whatever they can't work, they can't operate here anymore.
Good point.
So I think maybe if you guys, I don't know, maybe have a council of some people that do this for a living, and we could all get together and maybe do
I
a
think we
round
just
table.
got all that.
Thanks.
I think we just got that.
You're being a smart ass with me.
No,
I just think that, I don't know. I just felt kind of blindsided by all this. I kind of felt, we were, because I don't have any issues on.
There's
on-
no ordinance on the table.
Okay.
There's no changes proposed right now.
All right.
This is exactly what a government body is supposed to do. Ask the residents and the business owners for your input. That's what we're here for.
So I appreciate that. On Princeton Avenue, we have 9 rentals. We didn't have one problem all summer. I mean, and I'm a stickler. Like, I don't really put up with a lot of stuff. And we didn't have any issues. And some of them are short term. Some of them do 2-night minimums. Some of them do 5 nights. I don't think there was really any one set time, and it was in season. Now, I do a 7-night minimum in season, but that's just because
Okay.
I don't want to work.
Great.
hard.
We're
See
over
ya.
3.
Thank
You have to thank the academy.
Joel Horowitz, 11 South Marion Avenue. First of all, I wanted to thank the commissioners for your service and your goodwill toward considering an issue that for a lot of people is obviously important. So thank you for that. I don't minimize the complaints and the problems that have occurred. I also hope that we don't exaggerate the complaints and the problems because of the attention that the problems do get. I'm one of the few people in this room probably who don't really have directly a dog in this fight because I live in a quiet neighborhood and I enjoy the right to quiet enjoyment of my property, and I have an interest in quiet enjoyment of my property. And by the same token, I'm not a short-term renter or I do have a tenant, but it's a year-round tenant with the only issue there is a yappy dog. But I have been I got to Ventnor about 13 years ago and liked Ventnor. And anybody that knows me knows that I've grown to love Ventnor. I would encourage you to use a scalpel rather than a meat axe in your response in how you approach this. I do think it's deserves some attention. I personally have been here, as I said, in my 14 summers now. We have 3 adjacent properties that have rentals ranging from longer term to shorter term, but clearly vacation rentals. The only issue we've ever had on our block has not come from vacational rentals. It's come from a low-income housing or Section 8 housing building where there's been some issues. At least that's what I understand its status. In other words, I think that, I have had some noise from one of these short-term rentals in 13 years. That is, at 11 o'clock at night, 4 adults were laughing, and that's about it. So I don't want to exaggerate the problem. I do think we want to address this in a way that permits people who own properties to continue to use them as intended. I would be conservative in whatever the solution is. I do think that even requiring 2 days is somewhat arbitrary. Clearly, it cuts down on the number of and it may cut down on the incidents, but obviously there are situations where 7-day rentals or 5-day rentals or 30-day rentals are going to have people who are partying a little bit too much. I do not perceive that even these one-night rentals are, let's have an Animal House toga party and let's create that situation. It's very often, I think, people who are coming down and saying, let's get a place for the night because I don't want to drive back to Philly. We're not driving back to New York after the wedding, or we are going to go out and drink and and we want to be able to stay out late, etc. So in a nutshell, I would do something to encourage enforcement of the behavior and not draw an arbitrary line with some minimum stay enforcement. I think we've heard lots of great ideas about and I'm not going to repeat them.
I'm sorry, you're kind of wrapping it up.
We've heard lots of
Thank you.
great ideas. I would encourage you to enforce them, but not impose restrictions that become a burden on either the homeowners or the business.
That's what we're here to do. Thank
Yep,
you.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joel. I like the scalpel versus the axe. I like that.
What's that?
I like the scalpel versus the
Yeah,
axe. I like.
no, it's a good point.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me here tonight. Tony Morgano, 107 North Derby Avenue, Ventnor resident, taxpayer, voter for 44 years. I live up a street. There's 23 houses up my street. There's only 10 or 11 people who live up there year round. The last several years, a lot of Airbnbs or whatever you want to call them have come. I have at least 6 up there. I don't think half of them are registered or whatever. One's in a duplex, they ain't a legal duplex. But I get woke up from time to time at night with people coming and going, people in the driveway, people leaving having their dogs on my lawn. We need some type of regulations here. I don't know if it's 2 days, 7 days, but you also need to have something where you should have a person on the street at nighttime that you can call and say, hey, listen, you go over and check this house out, whatever. That's what I kind of feel. On the weekend now, in the summer, half the time I feel like I live in a motel. I got new people every other day up my street. And it becomes burdensome to me, or with the noise and everything else in the parking. You guys know my street. There's no parking up that street.
No.
Right? You know it. And so please do something for us, okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony. There's some people online.
Yeah. This woman's been waiting patiently at the end. No, come on.
You're up.
You're up.
I'm assuming I brought my ID because that's what you have to do in other places in the country when you want to speak to the government.
We don't require that.
No.
There you go. I'm assuming I only have 3 minutes here that I can't address the real issue that I came for. It overlaps.
Is it about short-term rentals?
Well, it overlaps. Let me put it this way.
What's your name, ma'am?
My name is Marie DeYoung. I live at 6101 Monmouth Avenue, the Ventnor on the Bay condo high rise.
Okay. Please stick to the short-term rental for now.
Yes, I shall.
Thank you.
Code enforcement and police empowered to deal with situations instead of finessing them when people are important and this and that and the other thing. That will solve a lot of our noise problems. It will solve a lot of our noise problems. I'm doing my own data and I'm going to do another Oprah to get another poll of police reports and things. I never did get the Oprah response for the police reports. I did get the fire departments. Everything that happens in our building is extremely minimized.
Is this regard to short-term rentals, ma'am?
As far as short-term rentals is concerned, yes. Thank you for.
Do they allow that in the Ventnor on the Bay?
Well, I just got the ideas of how we're going to combat the fact that they're not supposed to, but they're happening. And so I got a lot of ideas tonight from you all about how to deal with it in terms of screening and calling in to report. But the thing is, if we call in for noise for people who are coming there on the weekends and doing these wild parties 3-4 times, people getting punched and nothing happens. what's going to happen for a short-term rental? I mean, what's the difference? I don't think that the problem right now is just the short-term rentals. I think our police do not feel empowered to deal with things with anybody. They're very, very nice, sweet people. But I don't think they feel empowered to deal with situations in real time. I'm sure you've heard of the speakeasy on Cambridge Street. You know what I'm talking about. If you live here, you know what I'm talking about. That group of people is so loud and obnoxious, and they go back and forth between my condo, yell and scream. I'm there with an 80-year-old woman at the pool yelling and screaming. Okay. I was able to calm that situation down in my own way right there in the moment. But these are local people. Don't project it all onto the rentals. You know what I'm saying? Don't project it onto September 3rd. I was up on the boardwalk. Obviously, I am looking. And a senior citizen who was coming off of the pier came to me shaking with her husband. She said, "We came here to fish and the teens are harassing senior citizens and Asian people."
Ma'am,
We're on.
we're
Okay.
short-term rentals.
Short-term rental. Okay. So the point is, please, and I'll get to the code enforcement of other issues next time because I want to talk to that man privately, but please empower your police to deal with things in real time.
Right.
Give people tickets, ticket the homeowners, ticket the condo associations, ticket the management companies who aren't doing their
Thank you
job.
for your comments.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have a few people on Zoom. I'm going to start with what's on the top left of me. I have Tammy.
Here,
Yeah,
can you hear
logo.
me? Yes.
All right.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Tammy, you're going to have to first, I'm assuming Tammy's your first name. Give us
Yes.
your last name, and then you're going to have to speak up. We're having issues with hearing people on Zoom.
Okay, can you hear me?
As loud as you can.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, hi, my name is Tammy Balkin. I'm at 2 South Dorset. And thank you all for allowing me my 3 minutes. And from what I've been listening so far, I appreciate all the commissioner and the panel because what you came across is extremely reasonable. So
Please speak up.
I own a home on 2 South Dorset. I only rent when I'm on properties, meaning that from April until generally the end of October. And my minimum rental is 3 nights. And I check in every single guest. I introduce myself. They have my number. I have their number. If you look at my review, I do not have any complaints I have 100% satisfaction. And in fact, most of the time, there's time my husband who is there right now, he doesn't even know that if we have anybody on because that's how quiet they are. We have people right below us and we have people across the courtyard from us, and people below us, sometimes they're so quiet you don't even hear them. And my rental, I only rent it out to adult because I'm concerned of safety because of the old house and steep step and things like of that nature. I do not have age limit. I rent from teens to senior citizen. And in fact, when I have like people who are in their late teen, in their 18 to 20s, some of them, they left my property cleaner than some grown up. So I do not have, I don't have ageism. I don't prejudice against age of any sort. I have grown men and grown women that come in and, when they left my house tidy, but not as tidy as some of these young kids did. And the other thing is that because I clean my own property and it normally takes me at the minimum 3 hours to clean each unit to turn it over to the next guest. Being that I was a 22 years ICU nurse with COVID, I'm completely freaked out of the clean and make sure the place is clean out and be in between guests and sanitize, and because where I'm health conscious. So I do not have people come in to clean my properties. So I do not rent for 1 day or 2 days because I'm not going to clean for three, sometimes 5 hours to turn over one unit to have somebody stay for 2 nights. That's just not worth my effort. My home is my treasure. I rent it out so that I can keep it. I've been, owning that home since 2009. So 13.
That's not going to work. Sorry, I'm trying something.
roughly 13 years.
Can you try to speak up? We have a few seconds left, Tammy.
Okay, so I agree that, I'm sure that most of you have children. I have two. And when one of my child misbehave, I don't punish both of my children. The one that misbehave will have privileges taken away,
Right.
get grounded. And
Okay,
therefore,
thank you, Tammy. That's your 3 minutes.
That's a good philosophy. Thank you.
Next up, I have Todd.
I know what you were getting at.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you have to speak up for us, Todd.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
29 North Weymouth Avenue, Todd Lowell. I've rented apartments for 30 years, 22 years in Ventnor. I survived through Sandy. I lost $150,000. I made it through the pandemic, and the only problem I had was my one tenant in Ventnor. Cost me $27,000. Took me 2.5 years to get him out of my building. The laws are so strong for long-term tenants versus what they are for landlords. I have a 1-bedroom apartment. I only allow 3 guests there. I've started to recoup some of my losses through having a short-term rental in Ventnor. Everyone's been super respectful. I promote quietness of my rental. 10 p.m. is quiet time. I have my own unit there. Not everybody can afford to stay somewhere for 7 days. Most of my rentals have been anywhere from 2 to 5 day trips. So many people have discovered Ventnor and a charm. I feel like an ambassador there. Restaurants, bicycle rentals, ice cream places. Think about the 250 rentals that are paying short-term rental taxes. Every single rental. We're talking places that now get $6,000 for a weekend. And all of that money is paid to Ventnor and the state of New Jersey in taxes they would have never recouped. Okay. I don't agree with people not coming down there and spending money. Everybody that comes down there goes to all the local businesses down there. And no, I'm not operating a business in a rental zone. I've been renting an apartment out of my place for 22 years. There's no difference. I agree, one night is not a good thing. I would agree that I'd like to see a police blotter posted. There's been enough money, again, made through all these short-term rentals that we could easily have somebody posting these outrageous parties and putting it out there so everybody could see. It's like a blotter when a guy goes and has an affair and they put him in those trashy little newspapers in small towns. Wouldn't be any different. I would be careful about a 3-strike rule. Any neighbor can call on anybody and put in complaints really quick and make them lose their license. Okay. And again, in your $5 million budget, I'm sure you can come up with more, and that was just a bond issue. You can come up with money for these sound meters if you really think that they're necessary. I'd really love to see what the short-term rental taxes have, made Ventnor. And isn't it in like a yearly audit?
So we don't collect separate taxes from short-term rentals. It's just a property tax. Correct, Al?
I think he was referring to the bond ordinance was 5 million, but
Understand that,
yeah,
but
we
his
don't-
statement was we collect taxes separately
They
from
collect
short-term rentals.
taxes
We
in
have
every
a
single
mercantile
rental.
license. That's what we have.
mercantile license and miscellaneous revenue. We do not, it's part of our budget. But
Right.
it's not.
That's what I
it's
thought.
Very
It's not part of your budget, but there's every single rental that I have through Airbnb is listed on the taxes collected and paid to the state of New Jersey and local taxes. It says that applies.
Sure I
to those
follow
well.
that.
Yeah, I don't agree
We're
with
at
that.
3
Todd.
minutes,
Yeah.
but thank you for your comments.
Yep. David, you're up next.
All right, thank you. So I am David Bolkin at 2 South Dorset. My wife spoke a couple minutes ago, so I'll be very, very quick. We don't want to be Ocean City, right? Just too crazy. There is definitely lots of local spending from the People's Theater Place. Per my wife's comment a couple minutes ago, we're always have someone here, so I'm here.
Can you please speak up?
So per my wife, we always have someone here for guests. So I am here as we have one renter. And certainly I also agree 7 days is way too long. Probably 1 day is way too short. And pretty much agree with what most people have said. So it won't take up too much time.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Thank
Bill
you.
Sill. Bill, you have to unmute.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, speak up loud as you can, please.
That's the first time in my life anybody's had to say that, but okay. So I'm Bill Sill. I live at 103 South Suffolk Avenue. And my comments today are in my capacity as president of the St. Leonard's Association, as well as the director of Coalition of Absecon Island Communities. And I think that information is key to coming up with a just result in this situation, and that this meeting is an important first step. It's good to hear from responsible short-term renters, but we're here tonight because not all short-term renters are good apples. The challenge, I think, is to come up with an ordinance that addresses the bad apples without destroying the business of the good apples and without adding a huge additional burden onto the city. But in coming up with a solution, we do have to keep in mind that short-term rentals are uniquely located in residential areas and thus should have a duty and obligation to both the city and the neighbors not to disrupt neighborhoods and add significant burdens onto the city's shoulders. Nationally, we live in pretty contentious times, and I think our ability to come together and come up with a well thought out conclusion is what makes Ventnor special. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. I have Chris Kolomenko.
Hi, how you doing? Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, great. I don't want to belabor the point. Oh, sorry. I'm from 118 Princeton. And I think I would echo most of what's been said already in defense of the not making any mandatory minimums. But I would say with my guests that I host at my home, the most common question that we get is, where are the beach tags? What are the beach tags? What are the beach rules, right? Second most common question I get is, where's a good place to eat? What are the best restaurants around? So I think from my own experience, that's all I can give. I don't feel my guests are going to Atlantic City. I'm hosting families who are coming down for 1 or 2 nights, 2 or 3 nights, really looking to spend some time in Ventnor, really looking to spend some time at the beach. And these are families that, in my opinion, they can't afford 6 nights, right? So I feel like the one thing that has been brought up is pricing these families out. I have a home. It is set up for children. I have 2 children myself. We have cribs. We have pack and plays. We have toys. These are people that are coming that are bringing their small children. It's probably the number one compliment we get in our reviews, is that this place is suitable for children. And so I think, changing the rules to a 6-night minimum in season, just consider all the people you would be pricing out at that point. Because I do not believe that the people who are coming for 2 or 3 nights, they're not going to Atlantic City. That has not been my experience. These people are looking to spend a few nights at the beach. They're looking to spend some time in Ventnor. And so that would be my comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
That's all I have on Zoom that had their hand up. I think we've kind of heard a good cross section of what's going on.
Learned a lot.
So I think we're going to move on to our next discussion. You want to get into that tonight?
I just want to recap a little bit about what my takeaways.
One second. I just want to thank everybody for coming out. It was really good information for us. We're seeing different sides of this. This is not something that I do other than go stay in one somewhere. You know what? I forgot to ask Jimmy. Do you have anything that
The only thing is they mentioned about the noise meter and noise complaint. The complaints aren't from a rock band and 20 people out there. The complaints are just the traffic of coming home at 3 a.m, the car doors, sitting out on the porch, having cigarettes and talking at a normal level, not where they're yelling and screaming. But if you live next door at 3 a.m, you're hearing people out there talking. They're not breaking any laws.
Right.
It's a business. It's a business. I live in a residential neighborhood, and everybody brought up that they have a business. It's a residential neighborhood and they're running a motel. That's where the complaints come from.
Right.
I constantly see different people. They're coming and going. I don't know who's around, who's supposed to be there, who's not supposed to be there. The complaints aren't stuff that you could just go out and write a ticket and 3 strikes, you're out. It's not that easy. They're not breaking as many laws. They're just not living in a way to where it's a residential neighborhood. It's a business. It's run as a motel.
Right.
That's where the complaints come.
And that's where our struggles are. So we're going to look at some of the options we heard tonight and we'll convene again and probably have another discussion after we put some things out there. I think that's probably the better way to go.
We're going to get some data from the police department. We're comparing your knowledge of the actual units with the actual calls. But I just want to briefly say what my takeaways are here. And that is that we got a lot of great information, and that we heard a lot about what Ventnor has. What I was surprised to hear was how much the things that we have invested in, like the farmers market, like the concert series, like the Iron Man was mentioned a lot of times. And these are things that we've worked to promote Ventnor. And it in some ways, it's not logical to slow that growth down by restricting the use of what amounts to, as the VBA said and some other people said, if you multiply less than just around 300 rental units by 52 weeks, that's 15,600 opportunities for business that comes to the city every year that we're missing an opportunity on in some ways. So I think we have to be careful about using a scalpel and not a sledgehammer, and not hurt the success that we've tried so hard to build, and not knowing what the economy can bring. There's tertiary businesses that can be impacted by this.
Yep.
So there's
Agreed.
a lot to think about.
I would agree with your takeaway. I think that's what I take from it. And I think Joel left, but we're going to have to pay him royalties for the scalpel and sledgehammer.
I was keeping score. We're somewhere north of 17 people for a 2-day. They already use a self-imposed 2-day.
Right.
And there's some negatives there, but it's kind of overwhelming.
Okay. All right. Again, thank you everybody for participating in this. Jimmy, thank you. We'll continue the discussion. So thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
With that, you had another discussion item. It's not written on the one I have printed out. So
yeah,
it's about Park Mobile. Yep.
So a very simple ordinance change is being contemplated. Discussion item here brought up by Brenda Dowd in the previous meeting, that there was a ability to restart and almost infinitely park in our business districts, which is negative, where she uncovered the fact that Park Mobile was not wired correctly. And what we're proposing, and it allowed you to keep feeding the app. And so we had discussions with Park Mobile, and we're looking at restarting after the Thanksgiving, Christmas sort of break, where we turn the meters off for the holidays, restarting at that point with a 4-hour limit that's coordinated with Park Mobile and our ordinance. So the ordinance has to change. That would now give individual specific users the inability to keep re-upping. They would have to, it would ban them in effect and turn off that ability. So Park Mobile has acknowledged the failing there. And so that's what we're looking at. So it's simply changing 2 to 4 on that.
Okay. All right.
And
get their mechanism, their glitch fixed.
Yeah, because we don't want it to be a parking lot.
Yeah, the reason is to turn over
Exactly.
traffic, turn over cars, so people can use them to get in and out of the businesses.
Exactly.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Do we have any discussion on?
If anybody else wants to discuss?
Sure. Yes, you do.
Where Park Mobile is not space specific, it's zone specific. So I park in 6104 zone, whatever the zone
Right.
is, for 4 hours. Now, what's to stop me from reparking without moving my car? Because it's not space specific, it's just zone.
It limits you in that zone. You'd have to move it to
Does
a
it?
different zone.
Does it?
Yeah. And
Okay.
there are some zones that are larger than others. So we're going to ask them to divide them and get more signs and divide them into smaller
Okay,
zones.
I didn't know that it would it was
Yeah.
zone specific. So I
Right.
have to actually move out of the zone before
Correct.
I could.
You can't just move it a few inches or,
You actually don't have
Yeah.
to move your car because
Right.
it's zoned.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing it up.
Anyone else? Tim? I'm sorry? No, this is just on the Park Mobile.
I'm just on the Park Mobile.
No one else? All right. With that, we'll close the public portion on discussion items. In a motion?
Motion to close public portion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we will open up the public portion to anything that's on our agenda, which would have been the discussion items, or not really discussion items, item that are actually on the agenda that we referenced earlier on this evening. So resolutions or the ordinances. So Mr. Kreischer?
Tim Kreischer, Ventnor. I just want to thank the commission and Jimmy Agnesino and Maria for your cooperation with working with Longport and myself on the Forerunner.
We need a little
Software
kick in the
package.
backside. Sorry for that delay.
That's all right. But I appreciate you getting back to me. And it's a great thing. If you did this on your own, it would cost you $35,000. Going through this process in the shared service, the cost is going to be for 3 years. It's going to be a 3-year cost of about $6,700.
Yep.
So it's a significant savings. It will help protect your flood insurance deductions for your residents. So I just want to thank the commission and congratulate you on supporting the grant. It was mentioned that Margate was part of it. They're not.
Oh, sorry.
It's Ventnor, Longport's the lead agency, Ventnor, Summers Point, Egg Harbor Township, Hamilton Township, Pleasantville, and Brigantine.
Okay,
There were 6 cities that went in.
great. Thanks. Good work
Again,
on that.
thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Tim. Anyone else on any items on the agenda? Keith? So I remembered your name. See that?
Yeah, that's good. Sometimes I forget it. So the ordinance number 294, I just had questions around,
Resolution 294?
yeah, resolution 294.
Okay.
So in here, it's stating that you're, I guess, are you issuing a liquor license for?
No.
someone?
So what that is right now you cannot have open alcohol on public property in the city. So there's a wedding at Suffolk Avenue, which is public property. It's our recreation area, tennis courts, volleyball court. Someone has rented that space from us for a wedding. So in order for them to use one of our licensees, I think they're using Nucky's. Is that
I
right?
think they're using Nucky's. Yes.
Yeah. Is that Santucci's? It's one of our 2 licensed in the city to serve alcohol. In order for them to serve it on public property like that, we have to lift that ban for that day. So that's all that is.
Okay, so then Nucky's or whoever still has to go get a catering permit from the ABC.
Correct.
in order to
Yes,
do that,
correct. That's correct.
Okay,
ABC reviews all that. They make sure that everything's in order. The area has to be somehow fenced off or coordinated off
Right.
or
okay.
cordoned off.
Yeah, no, I was just making sure. I didn't understand. It looked to me like as if it was the city was issuing a license. I know they had the
No.
jurisdiction to do that.
No, we don't. We only have 3 and all 3 are so far purchased. So
Right. Okay.
thanks. Anyone else? Anyone on, Jim, can you announce anyone online for anyone on the agenda? Anything on the agenda to discuss?
Anybody on Zoom who wishes to speak or question on any of the items that are being voted upon tonight, please make yourself known within the chat feature by raising your hand and you will be recognized. I don't see anyone.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll ask for a motion to close the public portion.
Motion to close public portion.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we need a motion to close our workshop portion and move into our regular portion of the meeting.
Motion to close the workshop portion as described.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, first item is approval of minutes from August 11th, 2022. Need a motion for that, please?
Motion to approve minutes of August 11th, 2022.
I second, roll call, please.
Commissioner Kribel?
Yes.
Commissioner Langgraf?
Yes. I'll ask for a motion to introduce ordinance 2022-017, a bond ordinance in the amount of $1.475 million.
Motion to introduce bond ordinance as described.
A second, roll call, please.
Commissioner Kribel?
Yes.
Commissioner Langgraf?
Yes. I'll ask for a motion to introduce ordinance 2022-018, also a bond ordinance for various general capital improvements in the amount of $5,873,000.
Motion to approve ordinance as described.
I second. Roll call, please. Sorry.
Commissioner Kribel?
Yes.
Commissioner Langgraf?
Yes. We have no public hearings on any ordinances. Ask for resolutions to be adopted by consent from 2022-291 to 2022-300 and 302. We skipped
Adding-
301.
And you're adding these two?
We're adding 302, not 301.
Correct. Motion to introduce ordinances as described.
I
But-
second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kribel?
Yes.
Commissioner Langgraf?
Yes. We'll need our bills and payroll from Al.
Yeah, our bill list for this period was $4,607,587.94. And the payroll for this period was $650,388.04.
Okay, need a motion to approve bills and payroll as stated by our CFO.
Motion to approve bills and payroll as described.
I second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kribel?
Yes.
Commissioner Langgraf?
Yes. Okay, and my agenda just stopped. So I know we have our safety report that is listed out on the document. And this looks different. What am I going through here? Commissioner report. Oh, gotcha. Anything from commissioner reports?
Just a thank you to Good Time Tricycle. Great event. This is the first,
Fantastic.
meeting
Yep.
since then. It was just I think was the final number for, I think it was, I want to say 9,
It was about 9,000 people.
9,000 people.
And place was left impeccable.
Right.
I do have to call John. He's got some signs still around. Some
Yeah,
parking
some
signs.
signs, but from the police department and the fire department, there were nothing out of the ordinary. We had some normal things that we got squared away, but no major events on that side.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, cooperation all across the board. They did a great job with
Super second.
promoting it and handling more people than I think PD expected. Chief was concerned on Saturday when we were pushing 5,000 people.
We also have the pasta dinner with Maria on
The other, Maria, where'd she go?
Manja event
Right.
coming up. So you can get on Eventbrite. It's on October 2nd at Red Room. We're blocking off the streets nearby Red Room. And it's always a great event. I think it's grown by about 50 seats this year.
Yeah.
So it's a nice hometown shoulder season event.
It is. It's nice. Last year we
Of
went.
course,
It was
it's
a lot
Red
of
Room,
fun.
so it's going to be delicious.
Great food. And we have entertainment, I think. Gino sang last year, didn't he? Vic
Rubino.
Rubino. That's who it was. All right. I don't really have any reports, commission sidewise. Closing up the beach from the summer, closing up public works stuff. The showers are still on. They'll probably be on until October. Then we'll start shutting the water down. Pier water will shut off. Full pier access will be there for members, but the pier house will shut down probably mid-October. So get out there and use that while you can. Street sweeping went back into place this week on all the streets. So be aware of those signs. Anything else?
Nope. No, I think headquarters at the building is getting is coming to completion. I think it's and then we're working on 2 other buildings, the pier gate and the
Yep.
and the band shell, getting that out to bid.
Those projects should be out to bid and hopefully start construction over the winter.
Let's hope so.
That's what we're hoping for. All right. With that, I'll need a motion to open public to talk about anything that's on your mind.
Need a motion to open public comment?
A second. All in favor? Aye. So anyone in the room wants to come up? I know Mr. Young, you want to say? Just come up to your microphone. You got 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
We'll call this exploratory phase. We have a serious code enforcement issue in our condo building, and I recognize a lot of it has to do with the history of the building. I recognize
You get
that.
a little closer.
I recognize that a lot of it has to do with the history of the building. I've called in the past for different OPRA requests and things like that and have been told, oh, we gave up on inspecting that building a long time ago because they just do whatever they want. We get that. But a whole group of us have recently bought into this condo thinking we're going to be there 20, 30 years. And when code is not enforced, the likelihood of that happening, I can show you pictures of some plumbing. We know that the whole roof situation was badly handled. There are professional builders who are owners there, and we are part of a group that is working to turn this around. So I'm just sharing with you that I have been putting in the Oprah requests. The most recent one, there's so much contradictory information. Go look at the Facebook account. You have your police people saying things on Facebook that aren't true, defending our managers.
I don't follow city news on social media. I get my city news from City Hall. So I don't go on the social media post for that.
Well, I'll happily send it to you so you can see what, in other words, what I'm saying is, if we do an Oprah request and we're looking for information, don't tell us through a police dispatcher, say in the newspaper, not on Facebook or whatever, oh, they got the permits. Oh, they got the permits. You don't trust me, that sort of a thing. No.
So
No
what I would ask you, just 1 second.
Yeah, no permit.
What I would ask you to do is not rely on social media for getting any information about the city of Ventnor.
I am
unless
here.
it's our page.
I am here.
So let me finish.
Okay.
Let me
yes,
finish. I'm
yes,
not cutting
please
into your
do.
3 minutes. I'll
Yeah,
let you
No.
continue.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
But I would ask you not to get your information from social media unless it's the Ventnor City page, not the other ones.
It was the Ventnor City page.
No.
No, it was not. That the Ventnor Community Forum is not the city of Ventnor. That is run by a private entity, a private person in this community. That is not the city of Ventnor.
Thank you for that correction, but I did send a letter directly with all of the comments directly to the mayor, and I'll send it to the rest of you as well, directly to the mayor so that you could know. Okay. But here's the point. The deeper point is, why is it that some people with long ties in this town, oh, you just talk to so-and-so, oh, don't worry, you don't have to have a permit. That's got to stop.
No, that doesn't happen.
I in my professional life, I work in the construction industry, and there's no gray area there.
I will send to you the Oprah request that I have. I can never get a response saying we inspected it. We did this,
Oprah
we
requests
did that.
are very, you have to be very specific. You can't just ask for everything.
Oh, totally. I just ask for the part. Let me just give you the go around here. Okay. Because we have this problem of work being done by unlicensed people under the table, boom, boom, boom. And we're having a heck of a time holding the board and the management company accountable.
That's
I'm
internal,
asking
not
for
the city.
Oprah requests. Did you give them permission to do this work?
Right. And that's reasonable. If there's somebody working in the building and you feel as though that they're not licensed or insured or permitting, and you want to find that out. I understand how you would want to do that.
You can find that out.
But
There are no permits. I have been told time and again, we gave up in that building all the time, including what just happened with the bulkheads.
So
That's
that
the
was an
problem.
emergency. That was an emergency situation that they were doing repairs to solve an issue that was emergent.
The problem that has been going on for
So
years.
if you're going to continue to talk over me, I'm just going to stop and listen to you.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, but it was my turn. So I will no, that's a problem that's been going on for years. There's no difference today than there was when I moved in March. And the whole issue is we need to do things correctly. Come and get the plans, get to this, because what they were doing was 3 different things depending on who they were telling. Bringing up plywood and they're telling somebody, oh, we're going to fix the parking lot. And then telling other people, oh yeah, see that broken tile? Oh, we're going to do, we don't need any permits. We're allowed to do whatever we want.
So
And
we've had our staff, we've had our chief of police and our code and construction official, Jimmy Agnesino, was there one day this week. I'm not sure exactly what day. So they've done inspections on the site at the bulkhead. That's what we're
not what
talking
he
about.
told me.
So you're getting
That's not
conflicting
what he told
information,
me.
I guess.
Because I put in official Oprahs and I'm putting in the next one because there are other city codes that were not followed in the doing of this. That's not what he told me. He called me up and this has happened time and again. And I love the guy.
This is your city. This is your buildings management you're talking about.
Jimmy called me this afternoon, a professional contractor's wife was in the car with me when they don't need permits. They don't need this. They don't need that. No,
There
Look,
are a
and
lot
I
of,
said to him,
there are,
the open request specifically says, tell me when you went and inspected.
okay, ma'am.
He
So
did not.
there are a lot of things nowadays that you can do in your home or your apartment that do not need permits. lot of-
However, city
lot-
code, your city code says specifically, your
All right,
city
so-
code specifically
So there's
says,
a difference between code and permits. So,
Right.
and you're a little bit over your 3 minutes. I think you
Yeah.
probably are
Right.
better off talking to the actual departments that that you're trying to get this information from. But the code officials, working inside a person's home is handled
this is
by
the
the
home, I'm
state.
talking about the bulkheads.
Well,
But
even-
the
even-
state said, and your city code says, you have to get permits before you touch your bulkheads. That's what your city code says.
Right.
Okay.
That's correct.
Where's the permit? That's all I asked.
It was an
Where's the
emergent
permit?
issue that they were trying to solve. They have application into the DEP. You can look bewildered all you want, ma'am. But we had
DVP,
The DEP, the-
NJDEP. They have permit
they say
applications.
no. I have it in writing.
Okay, great.
all right.
Your 3 minutes are up.
You're, all right. Thank you for your comments.
And well, my point is, you can't take their word for it. It needs to be verified before you.
I will meet with Jimmy tomorrow and find out what occurred. Both he and chief of police were on site this week and
I was
asked,
there all week. I never saw
well, they're not going to go meet with you, ma'am. They're going to
I'd
meet with the
watch it.
building management.
right out of my window all day long.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Beth, you have your hand up?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi.
Beth,
Sorry guys.
just put your name on if you could and speak as loud as you can. I know you have a young child in the building, so don't scream, but talk as loud as you can.
No problem. So Beth Court, 125 North Derby Avenue. I was on for a little bit earlier, but I had to jump off for bath time and bedtime. But I just wanted to make a couple comments about the short-term rental ordinance.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I know that it was discussed at length earlier. I just had to take a break. So I do live in town and have a vacation rental in town. And as many people had said, you know, the owners are ambassadors for the town. Many of us promote local businesses, the local events. We're trying to do a good thing here and be good neighbors. There were just a couple things that I heard people say that I wanted to give some additional feedback on. One was with the sound detection advices. I totally agree with using them. I think that that's a really good option to try and prevent parties and prevent issues for the neighbors, especially if in the permitting process, it's considered for larger homes, like say a 5-bedroom home or more. Like a larger house is more likely to attract a party, to attract more noise. So that's something that I would like to see considered. Atlantic City put an age restriction on rentals, which would also be very helpful. So for example, Airbnb, you're allowed to rent at age 18 through Airbnb. And that's a problem for people who operate using Airbnb, because we are not allowed to say that, like say someone who's 18 tries to rent it, we can't deny them just for their age, because we can get hit for discrimination by doing that and get kicked off the platform. So it's really helpful in Atlantic City. They put a limit of age 21, and now the owners can just default to the city and say, like, listen, you 18-year-old cannot rent my rental because the city has a limit of age 21. So that would be really helpful if that's something that you could put into place. And then Airbnb also has an occupancy limit of 16. And I know that it's different for every house, but that's something that Airbnb has done to try and prevent parties. And we stand to that too. Like we don't allow more guests than is on the occupancy. And then I wanted to make a comment about the nightly minimums. Like I totally understand a 2-night minimum in the summer, trying to prevent people from coming in, just having a party, leaving. In the off season, it's really hard to get any rentals at all. So like we have a 3-night minimum from June through August, but then September to May, we go down to 1 night just because it's harder to get anyone to come down here for a weekend in January and February at all. So if someone's going to come for just 1 night, like we just need that income. So that might be something else to consider, or to break the occupancy limits by, like, I understand we're talking a lot about residential districts, like there's these big houses in the residential districts, like maybe if in the commercial districts there could be a 1 night, or like the mixed use districts, a 1 night minimum there versus other places. Or to consider it seasonally, like I said, like it's hard in the winter to get someone to come down. And then there's just one other point I wanted to make about someone had mentioned that something about instant booking and how you can't review your guests, or you can't like get their information or anything with instant booking. And that's not true. Airbnb, for example, has settings to allow, you can still have instant booking, but guests can instant book only if they've verified their identity with Airbnb by uploading their government ID and have positive reviews. So instant booking itself isn't the problem. Like, again, it goes back to how people verify their guests who are staying there. And you can apply these settings that will make sure that it's like a person who has uploaded their ID, and there's some.
All right, Beth, we
All right.
we get it.
Thanks.
We're long over the 3 minute there.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thanks. All right, anyone else?
Keith Gibbons again. Well, first I wanted to, I guess, commend the way that you guys run the council meeting here from my town. It's like night and day difference. I actually feel like you guys listen to everybody and what their thoughts and, concerns were about it. So just thank you. I guess appreciate that. The one thing I did want to mention was the gentleman who was sitting here, I don't know, I think his name was Jimmy, that he made it sound like the problems that people were having with somebody talking on their porch, that doesn't happen with someone that lives in a house next to you or is staying there for a year-round rental. So a lot of the things that came up can also happen with, with other people as well. Just throwing that out there.
It can, but you can go to your neighbor and say, hey, look, you were up late last night. Can you take that conversation inside?
Yeah, and I don't want to jump in on that, but too much. But I think he was actually saying that that's kind of one of the he's kind of minimizing it, saying that those are things that happen. I've spoken to Jimmy on a number of occasions, and that can happen, and the police department as well. Those kinds of loud noises happen when you have when neighbors who aren't Airbnb, aren't short-term renting, have parties.
What I'm saying is it can happen. It's not.
Yeah, it's not
excluded from people.
It's not short-term rental specific.
Right.
No.
So, yeah, and I think he knows that.
Saying it was 3 a.m. in the morning
Right.
too. When
Yeah.
we got home, 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the other thing that I was really sticking around for was and because of the way you guys seem to be handling communication back and forth here, the water pipes going to houses going back and forth. Can you explain a little bit more of how that? Because from what I understand of it, it's on the owner's responsibility to do it, but the state mandated. I thought there was something where the state, if they're mandating something like that, that they'd have to can you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. So the state mandate, state pay has kind of gone away over the years. We would still hope that does something with grants and other funding in this case. But so we're applying for grants to help us, the city, the municipality, pay for what we've anticipated is several $1 million of pipe replacement that we're going to have to do. As part of that grant process, they required us to pass a resolution. It was an ordinance that said if a resident wants to opt out of the city coming onto their property, they would have to do that within, and it is 190 days, not 90, 180
good.
days, not 90 days. What we passed was 180 days.
That's what I.
That was Ed Stinson's suggestion. Over the 90, we did it. So we put 180 in. If you want to do it yourself, you'd have to tell us within 180 days of whenever that ordinance went in 2 weeks ago. If you don't opt out, then when we come in and do all of these, we will do it on your property. There may end up being a special assessment to property owners that we have to do this on, because it's going to be a huge cost. Our estimates were in the $70 million range over the next 10 years that we're going to have to spend on this. So we are applying for as many grant funding options as we can. We have 2 separate ones in now, one with the federal government, one with the state, to help offset that. What our hope is that that'll offset most of it and the impact to us will be minimal, but who knows?
So if I have no idea if my properties need to have pipes replaced going to it, is that something that you guys are coming in?
We will.
Coming in,
we will be
assessing and telling you that, hey, this is what's happening. And then is there a cost to what you're?
It's
putting in,
likely
or is the
depending
city
on when
taking
your
that cost?
home was built. Do you know when your home was built?
I don't know. Off the top of my head now.
Yeah, if it was built prior to 1980s, it most likely has galvanized pipe coming from the street to your house.
Okay.
So if it was built after that, most likely it's copper. Or even newer.
$70 million-ish you were talking about, the city is incurring that, or it's spread out in the.
So we've estimated that that's what it's going to cost us. Because when we do this, you're going to have to go to I think the number that Ernie came up with is about 5,200 properties in the city. There's about 5,700 properties in the city total. So the majority of the city, we're going to have to be digging up and doing this.
Okay.
So as you go down the street to replace these water services, our water mains are fine. None of those are galvanized or lead. But a lot of times you have a corporation, which is where that line comes out of that main to go into your house, to go into towards your home. That is a lead corporation is what they call it. And then if you have galvanized in the rest of that line, that all has to come out. So if you're doing it on every lot, you have to dig up the whole street.
Right.
So you have to repave that street. And then a lot of the cost that we've estimated is from the curb to your home, depending on whether or not it's under concrete, whether or not it's in your front yard, which is grass, or if you're in one of the properties that has, a 60-foot front yard with huge landscaping and all of that. We hope to avoid a lot of those areas, but in some cases we won't. That 70 million is what we've estimated the city's going to have to spend to do this work. And that's what we put forth in these grants.
Okay. Maybe I'm just dense, but so the part that is from the street to the house is still a homeowner's responsibility?
No. Under this state mandate, the state statute, we are required as the city to replace that line from the main to the exterior foundation of your house.
Okay. So there's not a pending cost that could be out there for homeowners? Is it?
They're not specifically for your house, but what may happen is, depending on how much money we get from the state and the feds, there will be most likely a special assessment for that spreads the cost over to everybody. So your house isn't going to be different from the next guy. It would be the same cost spread to everybody in the city. And it wouldn't be in our rates. It would be a special assessment is how we've talked about doing it.
So I don't know what a special assessment means
You get a year,
like through tax.
another bill.
Okay.
Separate from your taxes, separate from your utility bill that you would get once a year and would pay it like a mortgage until it's paid off.
Okay.
And over 10 years, depending how long how long the ordinance is written, spelled out. So
And everyone's the same amount, every property. If it's 70 million or whatever, the number is, that's spread out depending on.
Right. Say we get 60 million in grant funding. So we have to spend 10 million of the city's money. We would break that out over everybody over a period of time, not 1 year, a set period of time to pay that money back.
Okay.
The only thing that if you wanted to do your own line from the curb to your house, that's when you would incur cost specifically for your home.
Gotcha. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
It's very confusing. It's not a lot of municipalities have jumped out on this when it came across my desk. I've met with the commissioner of DEP. I've met with Senator Palestina, both Assemblyman and Assemblywoman Swift and Guardian. We need help. We're a small town. I can't imagine what it's going to cost Atlantic City. I don't even want to think about that. Because most of those homes were built before 1980.
Yeah.
You imagine going on like Italy Terrace over by Fairmont section in
Well, I guess
Ducktown.
that's another, if my house was built after 1980, then I don't have to worry about this.
You might not have to. That's correct.
So if your property was not taken, you're not one of the people who has to pay part of the 10 million also,
Right.
correct?
So you
Correct.
won't have the special assessment, but the
Right.
person next
Special
to you that
assessment,
was
right.
built
It's only the
before
person that gets
will.
the benefit or the
Right.
work done.
Okay. Understood. Thank you for explaining.
Yep. Thanks. Thanks for coming out, Keith. You got the full package tonight. You got to speak like 2-3 times. You're all in. Tony.
Hi, how you doing? While I'm here, okay, you guys know my street, it's a tough street to park on, everything. Had 2 houses raised, maybe 3, 2 houses built. Street sweeper ain't been down my street in 3 years. Okay,
You can't. The cars don't move.
well,
We can start issuing tickets.
if you could just send the guy up there once every couple of months,
All
it
right.
would make a difference, but it's been years. And I mean, I'm home every day. I know. I see the guy drive down the street, next street up. He does that street, bypasses mine every week. So appreciate it if you could do something there. Okay.
I'll ask him to take a look at it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out. All right. Anyone else in the? Is there anyone on Zoom that wants to have a comment? It's not coming up on mine that anybody still wants to speak. But if you are, please unmute yourself and tell us your name. It's showing up there, but it's not showing on mine. There's a Stacy.
I'm not seeing anybody raising their hand or anything.
Yep. It's just down in the chat box down the bottom. Maybe it's somebody in the chat. So,
Yeah.
but I've cleared them on mine, so it doesn't look like anybody's there.
No.
So motion to close public.
Motion to close public portion.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we do have an executive session.
Yes, we do have an executive session with regard to land sales, 6512 Ventnor Avenue. It's a contract negotiation and some attorney-client privileged information.
Okay,
And we may take action.
okay, all right. So with that, I'm going to read the open public meeting statement. New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act permits the discussion of certain matters within executive session as an exception to certain provisions of said law. Ventnor City Board of Commissioners wishes to discuss certain matters which qualify as exceptions in executive session. No action binding upon the Board of Commissioners will be taken within the executive session, and the discussion conducted in closed session will be disclosed to the public when legally permitted and when the public interest will no longer be served by keeping such matters confidential. Matters to be discussed are contract negotiation with attorney-client privileged information. We're at 7:48. Executive session. Mark, can you just give us a brief?
We spoke about selling the property at it's located 6512 Ventnor Avenue in Ventnor. Joseph Rappaport put in a bid of interest of $150,000. We spoke about it in closed session. We're going to reject that bid, and we're going to look for some other options for that property.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? We're good?
I think we're good.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
My second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And we're
8:04.
8:04 closed out.